Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. It is 7:06 p.m. and I hereby call to order the July 2018 meeting of the Village of Tivoli Board of Trustees. At this time, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I just want to let you know, they are showing Purple Rain downstairs in the library right now. We've got a good crowd, but that's what we're up against in terms of what you can do with your evening in Tivoli tonight. So thank you for making this important choice.
And if we burst into song, understand where it's coming from.
We will start with a village clerk's report. Clerk Bruno, please.
Yes. So in the clerk's office, since the last meeting, there were 2 payrolls that were processed. There were 475 trash tags that were sold, and including with the report, the schedule of upcoming events, I thought I would just sort of cover a couple of things that are coming up very soon. Yard sale day, Saturday, July 28th. And if you choose to sign up and make the map, you'd have to do it by this Friday. $10 for a site at your place, $20 for a spot in the parking lot.
Can you call me back in about 2 hours? I'm at a meeting. I can't talk right now. I'm sorry. Bye-bye.
And the other would be Monday, August 13th, the cleanup day, and $20 would put you on the list to participate, but also on the website there is a list of accepted and not accepted items, along with e-waste that you can pay extra for, and there is an extra fee, but it is all listed individually, and that sign-up sheet, or actually the informational sheet, is on the website. The yard sale day, the permit application is on the website as well.
Thank you, Clerk Bruno. Trustees, we have 2 sets of minutes in your binders. Firstly, the June 13th public hearing on the water system improvements in the water system transfer project. This was certainly an epic task for the clerk, and I had instructed her to take all the time she needed to do the most accurate and thorough job possible. She did so, and I also instructed the board to take about another 2 weeks, and including watching the Panda video, to make sure that we have the record that best covers that meeting. So that's in there, and that's why it's been over a month since that meeting, but we're going to approve those minutes tonight. And also we have the June 20th regular board meeting. Is there a motion to approve both sets of minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
That was the Deputy Mayor, followed by Trustee Murphy. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. Moving on to Treasurer's Report. This month, out of the general fund, we spent $98,574. Out of the water fund, $14,681.28. Out of the sewer fund, $9,186.61, for a grand total of $122,441.89. Is there a motion to accept the Treasurer's Report?
So moved. Second.
That was Schneider, followed by Ezrati. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
That was Murphy, followed by Major. Any discussion? Pay the bills. All in favor?
Aye.
And, zoning report? Yes. Trustee Ezrati with the zoning report, please. I believe it's just there. Yes.
During the month of July to date, 1 building permit was reviewed and issued, 2 building inspections were performed, 6 complaints were submitted and investigated, zoning violations, 8 were issued for failure to remove garbage cans from sidewalks and for high grass. These will require parents' tickets at the court. Court hearings, there were 8, 3 property owners were fined. 2 municipal searches were requested and completed, and no fire inspections were scheduled. The code enforcement officer would like the board to consider a sidewalk sign law, hiring a fire inspector contractor, and boarding up structure and pest control contractor for, is it 8 or 6 Madeline Court?
I think it's 6.
6.
6 now.
Okay, and there's an ongoing consideration. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to let people know there's chairs still over here? Is there?
Yes, is there anyone? We've got a few more seats in the front, if anyone likes. Well, you folks by the door, if more people come in, please direct them to some chairs. Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Israti. At this time, we're fortunate enough this month to be joined by our county legislator, Christopher Munn, and I'd like to give him a chance to address his constituents here in Tivoli.
Thank you. We meet once a month down in Poughkeepsie, and I try to come to as many of these meetings as I can. There are actually conflicts with county meetings that overlap with the villages, both the villages. So unfortunately, I can't make all the meetings up here, but I do like to come to these meetings as often as possible. Just hitting the highlights of the last couple of months, we managed to finally pass a transparency resolution. I posted about this a little online. Right now, there are many volunteer boards and committees that meet at the county level that provide recommendations to the county legislature and the county executive. And it's all volunteer boards. You know, occasionally there's county legislators that sit on some of them. And for the life of us, we couldn't even find the full list anywhere. There were boards that county legislators were supposedly liaising with that they didn't even know about. So, you know, we asked to have the full list put up on the website with all the members, and so that also so the public could know, you know, who's on these boards and could apply themselves and, you know, get involved if they wanted to. And it took a couple months to convince some of the more reluctant members, but, you know, the administration was all for it. They've already started moving forward even before we passed the resolution, and we were able to finally unanimously pass that resolution in the past one. So all those boards will be up online. I know it's, you know, not a humongous, you know, it may not seem like a big deal, but these are the kind of things that, you know, need to be out there. This information should be out there, and it's really basic stuff. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to do, and it just was beyond me why this hadn't happened years ago. We recently had an issue come before us, which was, you know, I call it the salary law. It was proposed and put forward, and what it did was it made it easier for the elected officials, the politicians, to raise their own salaries. And I was in opposition to this, as were most of my Democratic colleagues. And one of the Republicans also voted against it. And what it basically did is it allows the legislature to vote on raising salaries in a non-election year. The way the law originally was is that if you wanted to do a salary increase, and personally I'm not, you know, weighing in one way or the other on any particular increase. I mean, if people are putting in a lot of time, especially the full-time, you know, elected officials, then, you know, that's something they can come forward with. But they would have to, the vote for this would have to happen on an election year, so that the vote would happen, and then within a few months, you'd go before the voters, and you can make your case, or, you know, they can hold you accountable. And the law, as they put forward, allows this to happen in any year now. So, for example, if there's a 4-year term for county executive, the year after they're elected, there could be a vote 1 year into their term that would raise their salary as of the following term. It doesn't take effect right away, but there could be 3 long years where, you know, perhaps it could be lost in the, you know, lost in the past and not as responsive to the voters. So, you know, I voted no on that. It did pass, and it was signed by Mark Molinaro, who his office was the one who had put it forward and explained it on the floor. and he did sign that on July 3rd. So that's the new law. So I'm not sure when or if salary increases will be coming forward, but I'll certainly share that with you if they do put those forward. Some good news, you probably saw outside, you may have been asked at a prior meeting, the electric car charger that the county has brought outside. This adds to a number of electric car chargers we have in town. There's also one in town of Red Hook Town Hall. So I'll be probably getting that information, so hopefully more. I saw there was a Chevy Volt. I don't know if it's anyone here. I saw there was a Chevy Volt already parked outside before the meeting.
And I'll let you know that it quickly was not working, like the next day.
Really?
Yes, but I did see the county executive yesterday and let them know and spoke with Brendan at the county, and we have a service person coming tomorrow.
Oh.
So I think we might have to keep an eye on it. It's
Oh, yeah,
wonderful,
we don't
grateful,
want- that's
and we
it.
just want to make sure it actually functions.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
But until that's working, you could always stop by town of Red Hook parking lot. That one is actually free. Don't tell anybody, right? But it's free for the next 2 or 3 years, I think, under agreement with the state grant with that, not a county grant. So that's it. The August meetings of the county, the August full board meeting of the county legislature will actually be at the fairgrounds the day before the fair opens. So it'll be local, more local for once. If I know you're all dying to go to a county legislature full board meeting and see how the sausage is made, but we will be there on August 20th. That's the Monday before, and we'd love to have you if you want to stop by. So,
Thank you, legislator. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so now is the point in the meeting when we take public comment on agenda items only. Now, normally, when we have a shorter agenda with less large resolutions on it, I'll go right through and I'll say this one is about this and that, and try and give you some context. I'd like to not do that tonight. I think most people are here to discuss the water tank. But if you have any, we can talk about that and any of these items. And if there's one that you say, wait, what's going on here, I'd be happy to explain it. But I'm not going to explain all 11 right now. I'm going to go, unless anyone really objects, I'm going to go straight to the water tank resolution so I can let you know what's being proposed tonight. This resolution is to approve the McKnight location for a multi-leg water tower. And I'm going to read the resolution. Village of Tivoli has undertaken a study of its water system condition, need for improvements, and the feasibility of transfer of the system to the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority, DCWWA, and has received and reviewed the water facilities evaluation dated 2017 and prepared by Ty and Bond Engineering. That's those large reports we've had for a couple of years now, and a feasibility study prepared by the DCWWA. Collectively, those are referred to as the facilities studies. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tivoli has indicated its intent to transfer ownership and responsibility for management and operation of its water system to the DCWWA, subject to the completion of a transfer agreement and review under seeker. And whereas at its meeting held on June 25th, 2018, the Village of Tivoli Planning Board determined that the proposed action is consistent with the village's local waterfront revitalization program and approved a determination of non-significance, a negative declaration, regarding the proposed action. And whereas the existing water tank is in need of replacement, and the village board has reviewed alternative feasible locations and tank styles for the replacement, whereas the village board desires to proceed with preliminary engineering and funding applications for the prompt replacement of the existing tower, and whereas the village board of trustees has taken into account, bless you,
Thank you.
has taken into account and carefully considered the facilities studies, that's all those reports I mentioned earlier, the comments and concerns of the public. So this is the file of all the public comment from that public hearing and the written comments during that same period, and you'll recall that we kept it open over that following weekend. So that's this record here, which we have reviewed thoroughly. Including, without limitation, the location of the village within a National Historic District, the visibility of the tank, the importance of the water tank to the village's iconography, the estimated cost of alternatives, the need to erect a fence to secure the tank, the ability to screen the tank, the ownership and current use of the McKnight site, and the feasibility of co-locating the tank there, The possibility of increased recreational uses for the current tank site following completion and testing of the new tank as compared to the potential for the McKnight site. And then it says, now therefore be it resolved that we do that. So that is that resolution. If anyone wants an explanation of anything else,
Can I just see one bullet that I see that as you're reading it? I think that we dropped a line in there. Apologize.
sure, in that third whereas?
Right.
Okay.
If you want to read that to the board.
All right, we're changing that. Goes in after that and?
Right. You see?
Yes, all right, so
Okay.
that will now read the third whereas. Whereas at its meeting held on June 25th, 2018, the Village of Tivoli Planning Board determined that proposed action is consistent with the village's local waterfront revitalization program, and the village board has approved a determination of non-significance, right? That, without that wording, it sounded like the planning board did
It did,
that, which
didn't
was not the case.
I apologize.
Right, yep, thank you, council. And again, so we now open the floor to public comment. I'm sure that is the main topic tonight, but anything else, we're happy to discuss as well. Great. Purple rain. Yes, if you could please just say your name and address, thank you.
Linda Allen on 23 Broadway. Is there a consideration at all for a little less industrial design? You know, some of these things that went around on Facebook. Is there any possibilities for anything other than a tank that looks very industrial?
The considerations for the tank were based on the size that we need, and a lot of the designs that we went around on Facebook, you know, there were a lot of rooftop cisterns and things that were not adequate for what we need, you know, and the multi-leg design is the one that most closely replicates what we have now. You know, so understand.
Multi-way, but they had, I don't know, just something a little different at the top.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is we are proposing to not consider further styles other than that multi-leg, which has happened, yes. Jenny?
Yeah, hi. My name is Virginia Barber, 68 North Road, Tivoli. When you put the tank out there, are you going to be putting shrubbery, trees and stuff around it to help hide too? Because there was a lot of controversy on the neighbors there.
Yep,
And, okay,
absolutely.
all right, great.
Valerie?
Valerie Roberts, 41 Tivoli Garden. Two quick questions. One, does all the funding include the demolition and removal of the existing tower?
Yes.
And two, once this has reached all its final approvals, when would we expect to see a change in the water rate? Is that going to be an immediate increase? Is it going to be prorated?
I will do my best to answer that question, although I'm not the expert on when that happens. So the process going forward here for the transfer, which is really what's going to drive that, we are shooting for next month to sign a transfer agreement with the DCWWA. That is just the beginning of a long period that's about 6 to 12 months of reviews and everything, and then the county has to draw their district and all of that. But sometime 6 to 12 months from now, hopefully we'll get to a closing, and it's like metaphorically speaking, we hand them the keys to these systems, and at that point they will start doing the big capital projects that will result in those higher rates. Now, do either of you want to add anything to that? Because
Well,
we're also
right,
applying for funding before that,
Correct.
so.
So generally speaking, the rate increases are going to follow when you do the first phase of the funding. So if you're going to do the funding, you're going to have to make sure that when that first debt service payment hits, you have collected enough money in your rates and charges to be able to make that payment. So assuming that you go through the transfer agreement and Dutchess County is in charge, then they will first of all determine how much of the first phase of that project they're going to bite off, which is presumably going to include the tower in the case of the water project. And that will be a big expense. So they'll have to say, I'm going to borrow this much money for that, at least that part of the project, and probably some of the other, you know, distribution lines and so forth, the urgent stuff. And then they will they will probably start collecting rates and charges in advance of, you know, even potentially closing on that, because by the time you collect quarterly in arrears, by the time you collect the money, you need to be able to pay your debt service. So you don't have enough money right now in your rates and charges to pay that. So that's how that would work. Does that make sense?
So maybe that means 8 to 16 months from now, something like that,
To start, yeah. I would
when the
think so.
rates are gonna start going up? Yeah. I'd say so.
But I think it should also be said that part of the reasons for working so hard to get this project started right now is that we have an opportunity to apply for not only a zero interest loan for that project, but also the possibility that we may get a partial grant for that project. So the actual amount that will be charged will depend on the success of the applications for that funding.
Right, and if you recall in the facilities studies, those cost estimates with the doubling of rates assume you don't win any grants, and you're just borrowing everything and paying it off with interest, which we have now qualified for no interest. So that's like the worst case scenario, which we are certainly hoping to avoid by applying for these grants, essentially next week, yeah. Jenny?
Yeah, I got another question. At the last meeting, we talked about the transfer of the property to the whatever. Okay?
DCW.
And we also talked about leasing it, okay? Has anything
Yes, I can
for me to
speak that.
think about this, I mean, looking at it, we're giving somebody a property, we're giving them the business, they're making the money. You're saying they're a nonprofit, I understand all that, but that's a piece of Tivoli, piece of our property, and it should be Tivoli's.
Right, so let me speak
You
to
know,
the
I'm-
lease idea that we certainly heard a lot of.
Yeah, leasing it.
I've met with the DCWWA and I've asked them, what about a lease? Can you do a lease? What would be the term of a lease? And they are discussing that on their board. So the directress who you've all met that I spoke with, Bridget Barclay, who's been at a number of our meetings, she said in that meeting, I can't tell you right here, but I'm gonna go find out. So we're exploring that. I will say, I think while we understand everyone's desire for that lease and what that does in terms of sort of giving you a back door at some future point, I do want to be realistic about the likelihood of that based on what I heard so far from them, which is they've never done that with anyone. And I know she said at our public hearing it was legally feasible, but I just, we are looking at that. I think it makes a big difference what answer they come back to us with. If it's a 60-year lease or a 100-year lease, I think that makes a difference because personally, when you get towards 100 years, that's close to forever in my book. And the advantages of that don't seem as obvious as a shorter term lease. Additionally, many of the advantages of the transfer that I think we've all come to understand is that you're not the landlord anymore. It's literally not your problem. Someone else is going to do this. And and so if you're the landlord, say, if it's a lease instead of total transfer, then this village is still involved to some degree, and it's very murky what that would look like. And I'm not saying we're not going to continue to explore this, but I just want to sort of expand on the lease idea.
Yeah.
And if someone else, I'm going to mess up an analogy, someone else buys the house, it's their problem, the roof, but if you're the landlord, it's still your problem, even though they might be living in there and doing whatnot. So I think we also, as we explore this, we want to be very clear about what are the advantages or disadvantages, but yeah.
Yeah, and also from the perspective of the owner and operator of the water system, because they will be owning the capital for that system. They'll be owning the water tower, they'll be owning the pipes, they'll be owning the sewer system, they'll be owning the distribution system for the sewer. When they are going to borrow, if they are borrowing to put that capital on someone else's land or on land that could be reacquired at some time, it makes it more difficult for them to borrow the funds. That's why the land and the capital tend to go together.
Good. My point of view is, we have to pay for the water tower we put there, right? Okay, they're gonna get the property, the water tower. Who's going to, something happens to the water tower?
The
Who's gonna have to?
users of the system will have to pay for it, which is what currently takes place.
Well, we would have to pay, if something happens to the water tower, we would have to pay to get it fixed, or, that's what I'm saying.
Like we do.
And then if we transfer
Like we do
it,
now.
why should we? if we're transferring it over to somebody else, the property, everything, the whole thing.
Because you think of it as, there's like a management.
Yeah, I
There's like a
understand that.
manager. Right now, the village government is the manager.
Yeah,
But you all and we all pay
yeah,
in, and that's the same model, except there's a different manager. So whether it's paying down a 30-year loan or hopefully enjoying a couple $1 million of grant money, it's really us. There's someone as a different administrator. Yes, Dan?
Dan Hubble, 1 Clay Hill Road. I just want to push back a little bit on the lease. I think that in terms of the idea of saying, well, it's still your problem if we are the ground lessor, I don't think it's entirely the case. It's subject to what the terms of the lease are. If you have indemnifications in there, if you have the rights to, as ground lessor, to if the water authority's not doing what they're supposed to do, to step in and replace, fix what's happening and bill to the water authority. There are things, a lease is a contract, and the contract says what you want it to say. Additionally, when it comes to financing, there are multiple examples throughout the county of the IDA taking a leasehold interest for projects that are financed by bond financing. So it's one more thing that we would probably have to, that the village would have to sign off on in terms of the financing documents, but it's not an insurmountable.
Yeah, I think
it's not an insurmountable thing, and bond financing, people who do bond financing are more than apt and capable to handle a ground lease situation.
as you point out, there would be a lot of details that would have to get worked out in any sort of lease agreement. And other examples, in addition to the ones you point out, is like if they need to put in a pipe somewhere, do they have to come to us for an approval for each little thing or not? There are different levels.
Right. And all those things could be worked out where what we're basically saying to them is, you have a ground lease of the site for all intents and purposes. This is your property. You have rights to it, to put up the water infrastructure, put in the water infrastructure, whatever it is that you want. But if it's a 49-year lease, 75-year lease, 99-year lease, whatever it is, at the end of that lease period, it expires because, as you said, forever is a long time. None of us are going to be here 99 years. But we don't know what necessarily the water situation is going to be in Tivoli 99 years from now either. And I think it's important for our children and grandchildren to preserve the ability that they have to be able to make those decisions as well 99 years from now. I mean, I always get nervous when, you see conservation easements and they come, in perpetuity. And you think, well, what, 200 years from now, what's going to happen? What's the situation going to be? And so to do something that long, and I think that's what we're hearing the residents say, we want to make sure that our future residents still maintain some sort of control over the process.
Thank you.
And Basina Harar, and the thing of it is this is new ground. So sometimes I feel like, I know that, this is a huge issue and problem that you guys have been dealing with, but it's important for something like this lease versus giving something over, a piece of land, giving it over. It's not a house, it's land. You don't have to worry about the roof. And
I told you I'd mess up that analogy.
But the thing of it is to realize that we can be a paradigm for how other villages can give lease land.
Yeah, I mean, folks, I am trying to learn about what the lease possibility might be, for sure.
But the ball is in your
My answer to you
court.
tonight is I don't know what it is yet. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
But the thing is, the ball is in your court. They want the business.
There's no business. They don't want the business. They were asked by us to come here.
But it
In
will
fact, by my
behoove them to
predecessor.
have the business. I mean,
You have
if
to
you're,
understand what the water authority is and does, and they're not like going around looking to take over things. They're a chartered public benefit corporation who has to take things over from municipalities and private
Well, then
entities that ask them to.
maybe there would be a way for Dan to, I think that's his name,
It is a-
to give some pointers on what you want in the lease, so that you can hand that to them to say, this is what we're looking for.
mean,
I'm not town council,
Right.
I'm village council right here. I understand what you're saying, Basina. I do want to jump in here as in regards to the town and the village giving ownership of the wastewater system to the county authority. I do think that's a good idea. And the reason why I do think that is because we as a village, I think, are overwhelmed by the capacity, and we just don't have the ability, as hard as I think you work as a board, and as hard as our water guys work. We're a very little village with a few hundred, I believe a few hundred parcels of property, and maybe, I don't know, 1,000, 1,200 citizens is my guess. And so to operate its own water and wastewater system, it just seems that there's more scale at the water authority level to be able to handle that. So while I do have other issues with what's going on here, that is not one of them, and I honestly do believe that having the county authority step in is a good thing.
But what I'm talking about is that for him to have some sort of frame of reference on what we want in the lease so that he can hand it to them and say, this is what we're looking for, can you abide by this? In other words, it would give you a framework.
I understand what you're saying, and there may be a point where that is useful work. If they come back and say, we don't do leases, or we do 99-year leases, or 49-year leases, I mean, that, I understand what you're saying completely, and there's a time for that if things go that direction. Linda?
I'm just wondering if we could get a sense of, somebody said something, and I may have this time, I'm gonna take about a year to build this thing, and like, just like what that might be like down into Broadway.
12 to 16 months to erect a water tank? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, like lots of people coming in, and just kind of describe what that might be like.
Noisy.
We recently had a bridge take that long.
Yeah.
Could they close the road?
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be a disruptive, loud, noisy construction, like construction is.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like we're closing the road down to build more, I don't think so, right?
No, I wish.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there's a radius,
Through it.
like how far it has to be from the parcel edges, you know, like, does it have to be 100, 200 feet each leg from the edge of the parcel?
I can't say within feet, but it's going to be in the center of the upper, the proposals to have it in the center of the back upper McKnight parcel, right? We understand how there's two parcels there in the center, most
So how-
distant from all sides.
And it has
That's
a
correct.
radius, a footprint of,
70 by 70 feet, the long,
Can work.
is that right or not? We don't know yet.
I can't wait resolution information, I didn't come.
I was just wondering how far it has to be from the, or either, you know, is
So
there no?
that's your answer. Middle of that parcel. We can measure it.
It's well within the current setbacks, so.
Yeah.
So, question I have is, this plan, multi-light tower at McKnight, was subject to the negative determination under seeker, correct?
Yes.
So, is there gonna be an archaeological study at that site, yes or no?
Two things. So one, we requested one already from SHPO, and they said you don't need one in a letter to us because the
Okay.
footprint of disturbance is so small. However, when you get to actual construction, I think they get another crack at it.
Okay.
SHPO, yeah.
Two,
If I
any,
misspeak, please jump in.
any environmental, endangered protected species studies in terms of wildlife, animals?
So as part of the part
Vegetative.
one long form,
Yeah,
and we
anything-
went through the.
And so there was a phase, you did do a phase one at that point, or no?
Yes.
So there's a
No, no,
phase
no,
one?
no, no. He's talking about something different. You guys are talking past each other.
That's why I want you to jump in.
You're talking about a part one EAF. He's talking about a study.
A phase one study of any possible endangered species or protected species that may habitat or be on that property, whether it's wildlife or vegetative.
So when the EAF was reviewed and when the neg deck was developed, they reviewed the impacts of those issues. They reviewed the potential for impacts. The only one they identified was actually the eagles nesting area and least bittern.
Lesser bidder,
Thank you.
yes.
on the waterfront area, which
Yes.
does not impact these sites. So
So there's no further studies we're planning to do?
it was determined that there wasn't a need for a further
Okay.
study, based on that information.
Now, in terms of the concept that you brought about doing a vegetative buffer, mitigating, the ground tank, so there wouldn't be any sounds, you said, I think is what you said, but vegetative buffer. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's push the ground, my apologies. In terms of those things, I mean, how are the residents going to be assured that those things are going to be addressed, as in regards to addressing visual impacts, those types of things? You said it would be buffered, but now I'm just saying, what are we, normally there is, environmental impact statement, if there are negative, if there are adverse conditions, and in that there are certain things addressed that are a requirement for the developer, whoever it is to do. So I'm just trying to find out how can residents be assured that those things will happen?
So I think if I could help you with that one.
Sure.
The board reviewed those issues in the neg deck, and they certainly did review those potential impacts and determined that there would be not large impacts. You're talking about a situation where they didn't determine there would be no impacts. They determined there would not be large impacts. And as you know, it's only when you determine that there are large impacts that you would determine that an EIS is necessary.
Correct.
So they determined that a neg deck was appropriate in this case. That does not mean that, as you know, in the process of reviewing the project, they also determined that they were going to take responsibility for the zoning issues for the project. So in authorizing a construction plan for the project, they would be looking at essentially the site plan for the project. That would be this board's review of construction plans that are developed by, whatever engineer is developing the plans for the actual construction of the structures. And those determinations will include considerations like what kind of fence, where is the fence, where is the exact location of the tank going to be, and what kind of screening of those will be appropriate and most appropriate for the type of construction that we have. So those will be considerations that the village board will be looking at.
In the site plan review process?
Well,
In
it won't be
addition-
exactly a site plan review process because they won't be following the same kind of process, but they will be considering those types of issues, right?
Now, in addition, I want to point out that part of the reason that the timing is as it is, that we are addressing the tank location and style now, is because we'd like to have a modicum of control before that transfer is actually enacted. So those are components that, we talked about different parts of a lease that would be structured, right? Again, when we are looking to establish or create this transfer agreement, components such as screening, we talked about cell phone wires on the tower, right? We wanted to have the authority to restrict that. Exactly. So screening and vegetation and the type of fence, that sort of thing, are additional components that we would have some control over within that transfer agreement.
So if I just get this clear, the applicant for this will be the water authority. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, the applicant for what?
For the construction of the tower. So when you come with a quote site plan.
So again, I think you're misconstruing. You're not going to come with the site plan, but the transfer agreement as it's being proposed, at least this is what the board has discussed in terms of when we reviewed the neg deck, is that the transfer agreement would, again, still being developed. But part of taking the public comment and listening to some of these issues was for the board to try to take, include in the transfer agreement some control over those
So there
issues.
are requirements as to what they would have to do.
Correct,
Yes.
correct.
So, and again, just to put it, I know how you feel about a lot of things we've communicated, and I appreciate your engagement, though we disagree here and there, for sure. But,
We're just trying to have a great town, that's not a great village.
great, absolutely. We can all agree on that. A year and a half ago, when we were really just talking about should we transfer or not, we also identified we're going to need a new water tank. And what we heard from transfer or not meetings we had was, wow, we better figure out that water tank before we give it to them. so that this community has as much control as possible. So that is sort of the context and the intention of sort of how it's shaped up, rather than, because there was a point when we could have said, oh, please take this now and do whatever. And we didn't think that was prudent or, a good idea for our community, so. Other comments on any agenda item?
We have 2 parcels out there in McKnight, or, how far do you want to go back? And who's the property owner behind that?
Me,
You? You live,
goes around in an L shape. I used to have.
no, I meant behind you, north of the McKnight site,
George.
huh?
George.
George, huh?
I'm east.
No, I know you're east, no, I mean, behind it.
Messina is
Okay,
to the
where
north.
do you live, where your motel is, used to be? No?
It's
With Champlin? The Tivoli Motel used to be out there. Someone's behind that, right? Remember? Nobody remembers the Tivoli Motel?
You mean Champlin's Deli?
Champlin's Deli, yeah, that's okay. But no, up further. Up further past Champlin's, past Ralph's Garage.
What's your point, Jim?
Well, I just wanted to know.
I'm
where-
behind it, I'm north. George is east,
Okay.
and I'm also west.
Okay, I'm just wondering because there's an old cemetery out there. No, nobody knows about that.
Where?
You know what it is?
The Indian one?
No, there's no, there's no. Don't drop it, don't drop it. It's an old cemetery. Back.
But that's off the McKnight parcel.
That's not, that's what I want to know. Okay, because they're talking,
Yep.
because it's in the woods somewhere, and they, years ago, they buried the people who had the Black Plague and all this stuff there.
Oh, you're talking over at the Red Church.
All right, I would like to keep this
Okay.
focused because we actually haven't
All
even
right.
gotten to the 11 votes and
Right.
all that stuff, so let's
Okay.
keep it focused.
Okay.
Other public comment on any item? Yes, Andrea?
Andrea Road, 60 Broadway. So when might construction begin?
Let's see, well, that depends on the transfer and financing. I don't think we'd see it within 12 months.
Yeah, I'd say the next step as far as from a purely construction standpoint, but it does weigh into who is going to take the lead on procuring the services of an engineer for the design of the tank. And that's not a, overnight thing. There's certainly geotechnical work and other things to do to get the tank design complete, so. That could be a 6-month process, sure, I'll say that. But you gotta decide who is that engineer contracted to. And that's a decision the village and then Dutchess County's gonna have to make if they wanna progress that design while they're still deciding who's going to run the system. So it is interrelated. Is that, sorry.
And we have to procure the financing for it.
It's typically in January where they make the December, January, where the grant decisions are made. So at that point, the village will know if they've been successful or
Right,
not.
so we're applying for these grants in August and we find out if we win or lose.
December, January, it's usually after the holidays.
And one more question.
Yes, Jenny?
Okay, we get water from a few wells around. What happens if the wells run dry? What
Then
do you do?
all of us and whoever's managing our
Yes,
water
well.
system, are gonna drill some wells. And look,
Yes,
and that's
well.
not easy. Yeah,
That's what I wanted.
yeah,
Like Rhinebeck, I guess, gets it from the Hudson River.
that's true.
So they, yeah, and they purify, that water is
That's also,
disgusting, disgusting. Even though they do it.
any other public comment on any of these agenda items? Going once?
Oh,
Jenny says so. Thank you all. Trustees. Moving on to regular business. First, we have accept Village of Tivoli Justice Court audits for years 16 and 17. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept these.
So moved.
That was Schneider, followed by Ezrati. Any discussion? And Trustee Schneider, maybe at this time you want to just discuss a little bit about what we have here?
Absolutely.
What goes
So we've got two audits. One is for the 16-17 year, and then of course 17-18. In reviewing it, we did note a discrepancy. The total amount of the correction was $227. So of course we investigated that and determined that it was a new procedure and a transition in court staff that contributed to a minor bookkeeping error, if you will, simply a transaction that was not posted appropriately. Once it was identified and the process reviewed, the correction was made. You do see that amount, that 227, reflected in this year's audit as well because of the time frame in which it was identified. One more cycle and that will be cleared. So we actually, in looking at this as a whole, the audit was conducted in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards. They require that the audit is planned and performed to obtain sufficient evidence to provide a reasonable basis for the findings and conclusion of the audit. This evidence should provide reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements. The evidence obtained provides a reasonable basis for the audit findings and conclusions. So in conclusion, the statement of cash receipts, cash disbursements, and cash balances present fairly in all material aspects. The cash received, disbursed, and cash balances of Justice Clark's Court and Justice Courtier's Court of the Village of Tivoli, New York for the period covering June 1st, 2017 through May 31st, 2018 on the cash basis of accounting. So
We're caught up on our court audit.
we are caught up and all good on our court audits.
Thank you, Trustee Schneider. It's been moved and seconded. Is all in favor of accepting the court audits?
Aye.
Aye. All right, trustees, next we have budget modifications. We looked at this in the workshop. The big one here is $47,174.50 to buy a new pickup truck, which will be here next week. It is also white as the dump truck we bought last fall, and after years of running rust buckets and dumping good money into them, we are trying to get a new fleet that, and ideally we will rotate them out after 5 to 7 years of service when they still have some value, and take care of them. And I know that the guys spend Friday afternoons cleaning the truck. All right, so those are the budget modifications. We went through them. Is there a motion to adopt? That was Deputy Mayor. Second?
Second.
Trustee Schneider, all in favor?
Aye.
Thirdly, resolution approving a new multi-leg water tank at the McKnight site. I have read this already, and we've discussed it. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
That was Trustee Schneider. Is there a second? Second. That was Trustee Murphy. Any further discussion?
Change is hard.
Change is hard. I don't know if there's more to add. I feel that we have, as a community, spoken about this at length many times in the last, many months. I think that we have heard all points of view. I know that the five of us have listened to everything and read everything and tried to have as open a process as possible. None of us want the weight of this on our own shoulders. It is a huge thing in the history of this village that we take very seriously, and there's no way to go through something like this in a way that's not going to impact some people the way they don't want to be impacted, and that is part of what makes it very agonizing and difficult. And yet, we all understand that we need to have a new water tower. New water tank. So, other discussion from the board? We'll do a roll call vote. Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Trustee Azarati?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The resolution passes. Moving on to resolution authoring the issuance of serial bonds of the Village of Tivoli in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $4,733,280 pursuant to the local finance law to finance water system improvements. So this resolution lets us, A, borrow that 4.7 million from the state that we have been told we qualify for at zero interest. It also is a requirement for applying for any grants, which we are doing also next. So we have to issue this bond resolution. Is there a motion to authorize the issuance of serial bonds for the water system improvements?
So moved.
Trustee Israedi, is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Schneider. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none. Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Trustee Israedi?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Okay, next we have resolution authorizing submission of funding applications for water system capital projects. Now this allows us to go after the grants. This is under the, help me Aaron, Water Infrastructure Improvement Act.
Correct.
Okay. And tell us briefly what that is.
So this is money available through the state, which is specifically oriented towards drinking water system improvements, and it is available with a 60% funding level. So that means the state provides 60% up to $3 million, and the village is responsible for 40% of those funds, but that would obviously be substantial.
And the period of the grant application and its submission
and
date?
It is, this particular grant we're discussing now is due on September 7th, and all of these resolutions need to be passed as part of the application, or you have not submitted an appropriate application.
And they come up once a year?
Once a year.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, is there a motion to authorize the submission of funding applications for water system capital projects?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Schneider, followed by Major. Any discussion? Good luck, Tivoli, I always like to say. Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy? Aye. Trustee Israedi?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next, we are doing the same thing for wastewater. A resolution authorizing submission of funding applications for wastewater system capital project. And this is in the amount of $3,744,200. And although it's called WIA Water Infrastructure, it does include wastewater.
Wastewater, not as good of a match as water, but still free money, so that's important.
Hoping to keep those rates down for all of us. Is there a motion to authorize the submission of funding applications for the wastewater system capital project? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
That was Murphy, followed by Schneider. Any discussion? Bring it?
Bring it.
Bring it. All right. Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Wants to bring it. Trustee Murphy? Aye. Trustee Israedi?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
I also vote aye. All right, next we have resolution authorizing bond council engagement for drinking water project. Whereas there has been submitted a proposal from the firm of Rodenhouse and Shale LLP for bond council services in connection with the Village of Tivoli drinking water upgrade project. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. The village board hereby approves the engagement of Rodenhouse and Shale LLP as bond counsel for the project, and that the mayor, or in his absence or incapacity, deputy mayor, is hereby authorized and directed to execute the engagement. Is there a motion to authorize bond council engagement for drinking water?
Oh, I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy? Aye. Trustee Israedi?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. A very similar resolution authorizing bond council engagement regarding wastewater projects. And it's the same resolution. You can add wastewater where I said water, so I won't read it again. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
That was Schneider, followed by Israedi. Any discussion? Hearing none. Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy? Aye. Trustee Israedi?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Resolution passes. Another grant. Resolution authorizing a consolidated funding application for local waterfront revitalization plan update. So this is our LWRP. This is what we talked about in one of the meetings upstairs, why we are an LWRP community, and that's why Tivoli got the call from the Department of State when Amtrak wanted to do the fencing, and we talked a little bit on George, we talked about what is the LWRP. So our villages was passed in 1991. It is old. Department of State knows that it is old. There is money available through grants right now to cover 50,000 of the 66,000 it would cost to update that. And we would like to apply for that grant and hopefully get this thing updated. Department of State has come to Tivoli in the last year, met with me to talk about your LWRP is old, and have you done any of the things that you listed in it originally? One of those is acquisition of the waterfront property. That's one thing. So it's time to update it. It's a great document. It gives us protection. And maybe before we move it, you can say some more about an LWRP, because I know this is your
One of those
wheelhouse.
things that I enjoy. No, it's a great document in that it protects our coastal areas, right? And it was expanded from a federal program to involve, the Hudson River, and so it lets us sort of identify where we are, where we want to go, right? So it's this great planning document. And so if somebody was to come along and say, for example, listen, we want to fence off the entire waterfront, we would be like, oh, well, that's totally inconsistent, no. And in reviewing it, after 27 years, we can sort of look at where we've come from and, have a little victory lap, and then, get serious about where we want to go, where we want to be, what we want to protect, what's important, what's our, all of that. So,
What are our goals?
what are our goals? And the town of Redhook is doing this as well. So,
It's actually been a useful document for guiding zoning, for helping us with waterfront development. So it's very well worth upgrading.
right, and along with all of our other,
Aaron Moore.
Thank you. Additionally, just like those two water and wastewater reports you mentioned, those, your LWRP plan is also often a required component for obtaining the grant. So those water and wastewater reports, those are essential for the grants. The LWRP is also essential to then qualify for money to do waterfront improvements. And improvements that are in that nature. So by having that document, it enables the village to pursue additional grant funding.
And if you submit one with your application and it's 27 years old and getting older, that's probably not ideal.
You don't score so well. Yes, that's due July 27th, that particular grant.
Next week?
Next week?
Okay, with that explanation, is there a motion to authorize a CFA for local waterfront revitalization plan update? So moved. Is there a second? That was Murphy, followed by Major. Any further discussion?
Just that it's a $50,000 grant. It's good to get money.
Deputy Mayor Major? Trustee Murphy?
Aye.
Trustee Israni?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
I also vote aye. All right, two more resolutions. This is authorizing transfer of monies to the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund.
Aye.
I'm glad you're pleased, Mr. Christie. So, truly I am, because there were a number of years here in the village when a certain amount of money was allocated to our fire department and rescue squad, and in a fiscal year, and when those monies were unspent, they went into the general fund and were no longer sort of designated, consecrated to those services. And 2 years ago, having worked with and listened to our volunteer fire department, who we cannot never value enough for what they do for the rest of us, we said, let's stop doing that. Let's set up a capital reserve fund. So whatever you don't spend in a year goes in the fund. And as that fund grows, you may have that pot of money you need for the down payment on the next fire truck, expansion of the firehouse, whatever it may be. But that fund, those monies that are earmarked for the fire company and rescue squad stay that way. and they don't go in the general fund anymore. So we're pleased that this year, you did a little better with your spending than the previous year. So $12,818.56 are going to join the about $19,000 that were in there from the first year. So we're already over 30,000. So, is there a motion to authorize the transfer of monies to the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
That was Ezrati, followed by Murphy and LaBarbera. I think we had four on that one, right? So, any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy?
Aye.
Trustee Ezrati?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
I also vote aye. And lastly, authorization of a contract for the purchase of a truck. I don't know if you've seen Cody in his truck going by with the bed sagging and it's almost Fred Flintstone, like beat out the bottom. It's rough. Anyone on the tree committee, we've hauled some water. Remember that day we turned that truck on, Pete? So, very pleased we're able to do this and that we have the funds to pay cash for it. And we are going to take care of it. And now that we have two, we're going to get them painted Village of Tivoli on the side when this next one arrives. Is there a motion to authorize the contract for the purchase of the truck?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was Schneider followed by Ezrati. Any discussion?
Aye.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Major?
Aye.
Trustee Murphy?
Aye.
Trustee Ezrati?
Aye.
Trustee Schneider?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. The next board meeting will be held Wednesday, August 15th, 2018 at 7 p.m., preceded by a workshop at 6 p.m. here at the historic Watts de Peister Hall. We have a regular workshop on August 8th, 2018 at 7 p.m. We also have scheduled, so I'll mention it now, a special meeting for next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. That's the 27th of July, and that is when the board is going to go through all the seeker documents related to wastewater. So we had done a resolution some time ago declaring intent to serve as lead agency. You have to allow 30 days to elapse that other parties could say, no, we don't want you to do that, be the lead agent. Our 30 days aren't up tonight, so we have to have an extra meeting next week so we can go through that. And for those of you who sat with us upstairs for the LWRP review, the neg deck, on the water, it'll be a very similar format. We are going to do the review of the EAF parts 1 and 2, LWRP consistency, a negative declaration, and a bond resolution, similar to what we did earlier this evening for water, but we can't do that for wastewater until we've completed secret. Did I get that
That's right.
straight?
Yeah, I'd say that the major difference is that the projects that were included in the recommendations from the engineers are a replacement.
In kind.
Right.
All right, so that's workshop on the 8th, regular meeting on the 15th of August, and a special meeting next Wednesday, the 25th. Moving on to trustee reports. Trustee Ezrati, please.
I give the water report, so I'm going to let you know what wells were pumping and sort of what rate they were doing, and the fact that the water tower was able to sustain 165 to 167 feet of pressure, which gives us the water pressure at our taps. The Ball Walk well, as is frequently true, was not utilized in the month of July or in the month of June. The McKnight well was pumping at the beginning of the month at about 10,000 gallons per day, dropping to about 8,700 at the end. The 2 Potts West well was pumping, it looks like they took Sunday off, but otherwise for the first 3 weeks of the month, and then was off for the last 4 days of the month, pumping at about 13.5 gallons per day. The 5 Potts West well pumped in the middle of the month and then at the end at 10,000 gallons per day rate. And the 4 PE and 10 PE Potts East wells were pumping at just under 20,000 gallons a day for the entire month. The Woodmark wells, which are newest and best producing wells, were pumping at about 22,000, which is slightly below what they're usually pumping at, gallons per day for the entire month. And so we had total usage of about anywhere from 50 to 63,000 gallons per day. And the water tower was at the usual 164 to 167 feet. It looks like we did not have any water breaks in the month of June, is that correct?
That's correct, unless the superintendent's not telling me something.
Okay, which is a good thing. I always ask this question, any guesses on the amount of water that was monitored?
0.625.
0.625?
5/8 of an inch.
Little low, it was more like 2.7. And that came mostly on the 28th of the month when we got over an inch. Well, the water report showed the quality of the water was good. Oops. Yes, and was tested in 2 different locations.
Thank you, Trustee Israedi. Trustee Schneider, please.
Okay, so the Tivoli Village Court charge volume summary report for the month of June. A total of 33 charges were received, a total of 21 charges were disposed, and $1,622 was collected and remitted to the state comptroller.
Thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Murphy?
Happy to say that last week we had our pre-inspection by the Department of Health for our summer recreational program. There were no violations found, which is fantastic. There's a few updating on paperwork which I need to do. Some of it I could not finish until I hire another counselor, which we need. I just got great news today that we have somebody volunteering for the first week to help out, which is phenomenal. To date, right now, we have 34 sign-ups, so we'll have 34 kids there, not at the same time. Some in week 1, which is small, and a lot in week 2. I'm working with the library for a couple programs, reaching out as well for a couple programs. I know Ari, our camp director, has as well. We're getting together next week to coordinate all that. So that's it.
Great. I think we have an invitation to follow up on with Cots Pond as well for a field trip for them to watch a ballet rehearsal as well.
Can I say something about this evening? I have to say, you know, there was not a lot of discussion while we were going through the resolutions. We have talked about every facet of this, from the positives to the negatives, to how it will affect us, to the safety of our water infrastructure and how important it is. I moved up here when I was 8 years old and from Long Island, and I spent most of my time at the park, at the recreation program, so that tower has been etched into my brain. When I left for 20 years, I would always make sure before I left I would crest the top of West Curly Corners Hill so I could see it. It's going to be sad that it's going to be gone, but I know you said change is hard, and it is hard. It's very iconic of our village, but I think the safety and the well-being of our village is highly important. And we have listened to every voice that has said something to us. And we are not done by any means working on making sure the village's interests are addressed. But I'd just like to say thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Trustee Murphy. Deputy Mayor Major.
Well, as always, fabulous things at the library, but I'd like to highlight 2. This coming Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, there's a Senegalese percussion event with master drummer, singer-songwriter Amadou Diallo, and he's going to be playing African percussion instruments and just talking about West African music and culture. And afterwards, you could take a turn, bring your own drum, make some noise. And there's a new program on Thursday nights, which is an adult music jam, which I will not be participating in. But it's called Don't Quit Your Day Job.
So you can participate.
Nobody wants that. No, so it's 5:30 on Thursdays, and there's a drum set, an electric piano, and a PA and a mic for vocals. But if you play something else, like, it's a bring your own sousaphone kind of thing. So, we'll sing together, Purple Rain.
Great.
But there's tons of great stuff going on in the library, as always, so check out the website, tivolifreelibrary.org. Really good. There's an evening of Mozart at the Elmendorf, another historic Red Hook event, and that's Friday the 27th at 7:30. Tickets at the door, $15 including refreshments, and proceeds benefit the Northern Dutchess Community Coalition and their efforts on the opioid crisis. Montgomery Place grounds are open.
Is that the same group that has
It
come
is.
a couple of their times, and they come with vintage instruments? The acoustics in the Elmendorf, in the South Room, are phenomenal for those, that vintage of instruments. It is a very special event.
Pretty super, yeah.
Yeah.
Montgomery Place grounds are open, free of charge, dawn to dusk, and I was recently in the Bard Falls for the first time in years, and it is spectacular on a summer day, so take advantage of that. Carefully, of course. Great things at Claremont, great things at Olana, and an update on Tivoli Bays and nature. Poison ivy, it's killing it this year. It is everywhere, as are the ticks, but really it's more of a poison ivy summer. And regarding the canoe launch, I had a talk with the DEC the other day, and the canoe launch is out, it's not gonna be usable until next spring, because the way that the floating docks, they had deteriorated and whatnot, but they would lie on the mud at low tide, which is apparently not cool anymore. So they've had to apply to the Army Corps of Engineers for a special permit and design a different kind of dock that makes it so that nothing is lying in the mud at low tide. And so the permitting process is slow, and they understand. The DEC is sensitive to the fact that this is really the only public place to launch in Dutchess County, or in the town of Red Hook, rather. But there's not anything they can do. So if you're going to try and launch from there, be prepared, because it is muddy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a number of things. One thing that skipped my mind earlier, and I know a number of us have talked about it, certainly Dan and I, we did engage a survey of the Ball Lot well last week. They were out there, and we should be getting that report very soon to find out if that well is in fact on its parcel or the Ball Lot parcel, in which case we have alienation of parkland issue for the continuance of that well or its transfer anyway. So I forgot to mention that earlier, I'm sorry. We have another CFA application going out next week. This is being done by Crawford and Associates. So we have one for the LWRP update. Crawford is working on a second attempt by this village to go after funds to stabilize our shoreline down at the river. This is in the amount of about $485,000 is what it will cost to combat the erosion and protect our parcel down there and lay the foundation for the park.
And it's 75-25.
It's a 75-25 match, yes. So that's also going in on the 27th of July. As Clerk Bruno said, yard sale day is coming up, not this Saturday, but the 28th. The week after that, August 4th, Tivoli Community Day, in the park, 2 p.m. all afternoon, games, food, fun, live music. I understand we are very likely to have the pumper truck hosing hot children again. Very popular, children of all ages.
Aye.
Our our little committee's been working away all summer, and it should be a wonderful afternoon, and I hope that everyone will come out to Tivoli Day on the 4th of August.
Especially for the group photo.
And especially for the group photo taken by the 2018 Victory Award winner, Pete Money, who always makes time. He turns down weddings on that day when he could get paid, except for that one year, to take our group photo. So that's
We'll make
that's
sure
a great
it's a
one.
nice sturdy ladder, Pete.
All right, thank you.
Also, I want to say, please take advantage of this cleanup day that we've organized, our little committee and myself. There hasn't been one in years. We've heard for years complaints that there's no easy way to get rid of their junk. We're calling it cleanup day. Think of it as junk day. This is $20, and a garbage truck will come to your front yard and take away your pile of accepted items. And all you have to do is get it out to the shoulder. You don't have to have a truck. You don't have to pick it up. This is the best deal around. And we only have 16 signups. And part of it's an experiment this year. And for this to be economically viable and recur, we really need to shoot for about 40 signups. That would generate $800, and the whole service is going to cost about $1,200. So please take advantage of it. Tell your friends. Maybe your neighbor needs to be told. I don't know. If you're on good terms like that. If you're on good terms like that. So that's going to be on Monday, August 13th. But you need to get signed up, before that, so that we can give that list to the collection folk. This one's for Pete Walsh. This afternoon, our rented roller arrived in the village. So after spending some time shopping around, thinking about buying, like I said about the truck, a used bucket of bolts, we actually found a very inexpensive place where we're renting one for $375 a week. We're gonna rent it for 2 weeks, and they're gonna be doing patching up for Row tomorrow. We're gonna get to Elizabeth and Woods over there, places on Pine Street, entrance to this parking lot, municipal lot. We're gonna do as much as we can, and if we don't get it done in 2 weeks, we'll spend another $375 and keep that roller in town until we get caught up on all this patching. So I know it's something that has been brought to our attention for some time. It took us a little while because I was trying to find the best value for all of us. So it came today, and the guys are ready to go tomorrow. On June 25th, many of you were there, we had a lovely dedication at the new bridge. We dedicated the bridge to the late great Bernie Teeger, village historian, trustee, booster, and leader of the 1972 centennial celebrations that kind of sparked a Tivoli spirit that we still try and celebrate with our annual community day. We had accommodations from Sue Serino's office, the county executive was there, some nice words from Trish. We made Emily do some public speaking to give a little historic context, and we got to read that part, the journalist who talked about the Tivoli that he came upon,
Oh, yeah, that was
the
brutal.
dereliction, the boarded up, just
So sad.
so, brutal,
Yeah.
right? So,
1968 Tivoli was just grim.
Right.
Grim.
right, so that was the Tivoli that Bernie arrived in with his young family and his new teaching career at Bard, and we were so pleased to have great cooperation from all the county personnel to
And a really good turnout.
good turnout, 60, 70 people, nice reception here. And the last several nights, all 4 lights have been working. So I know for quite a while there were 3 out and the other 3 were out. So the bridge was dedicated, and it was a great morning. There is sidewalk construction beginning on Monday east of the bridge. We are replacing 265 feet of sidewalk, essentially from where the county left off east of the bridge. There's that driveway apron by 33 Broadway, and then it's going to go up the hill. You may have seen the yellow stake. There are 2 yellow stakes. It's the further east one that we're going to be able to do. That construction is going to be all next week. Broadway's going to remain open, but do proceed with caution through there, and watch out for the machines and the workers. And our goal is that that's what we could sort of afford this year. Hopefully next year we will continue out towards Clay Hill, and the goal is to keep moving east and replace that terrible sidewalk that we all know about. So sorry for the disturbance. It's going to be nice. It's only going to take a week, hopefully, if there's not torrential rain for days.
And for heaven's sake, don't write your name in.
And don't write it, you'll know who you are.
Exactly.
All right. With that, I would like to open the floor to public comment. Anyone on any topic? And thank you again for being here tonight. Pete Walsh.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I want to thank the board, our attorney, engineer for all your hard work on the water and wastewater transport. And my other thing is apparently there was an incident on Madeline Court a few weeks ago. Some rats were on the property. I don't know if that's true. I've had neighbors say that they've seen them, and just wondering, I know you touched on it earlier, that
Right, yeah,
something was in the
that's
works to
report.
get taking care of that stuff.
Yeah, we have a structure over there. There's an ongoing enforcement action coordinating with the county health department.
Okay.
So, yeah, we don't want that over there. You all set? Pete Walsh?
Yeah, no, you're great.
Pete Money?
I'm just going to echo what he said first. I know it's been a long few months, and I just wanted to say thanks. I know that it's been a difficult decision, and we appreciate it, even if we don't all agree. Yeah.
Some woman in the second to last row I can't recognize wants to say something. Oh, Ginny.
I tell you, I think this administration is doing a great job here. You know, I don't come to every board meeting, all right? I like the bridge, I do like the bridge very much. I don't like the lights. It should be 6 or 4. It should have been moved over. It looks a little out of character. But we are getting a lot of stuff done. We are moving forward, which is a good thing. And yeah, well, everybody don't agree with what's going on, but you know, you can't please everybody. Just gotta do the best for the community we're in. And we got good water, got good sewer. Our streets are not that bad, you know. You guys are doing a great job, I think you really are. And, you know, just keep going, that's all.
Your support we will. Thank you, Ginny.
I'd just like to share a return compliment. We had a number of public hearings. At those public hearings, we had some people, including Aaron Moore, who have been to many public hearings. And the comment that the board got as feedback from those is that they had never seen such a civil debate when there was clearly a lot of emotion and concern and variance of views. I was very proud of Tivoli at that moment, and I was especially proud of the people who attend those hearings, who listen to each other, who speak to the board, who do not engage in private conversations. It was really phenomenal.
Any other public comment before we adjourn?
Got one more thing.
No, I don't believe it.
Okay.
Only one.
I was 15 when I moved here, okay? Come from nothing, small little house, okay? I make a living here, all right? I have a nice home, you know? I have a good business, decent business, right? And 58 years I lived here in this village, 58 years. And I remember walking down my street, and we had old Book John store on the corner, the old IGA. We had 3 bars in town. We had Tivoli Confectionery, we had Tim's store, Dino's. Dino's had a department store, liquor store, and a deli. I used to work in the factory in Tivoli, and I've seen so much go on, and so much change. And, you know, I mean, yeah, it was nice. It was cool back then, it really was. And it was nice. But you have to move forward, and the change is good. The change is good. And, but really, 58 years I've been here. I'm not telling my age now, okay? But I love Tivoli, and I want to die here, okay? I mean, I don't want to die now. I want to...
In the courtroom?
I want to live in Tivoli the rest of my life, okay? That's my home, 58 years.
I think a lot of us feel that way, whether we're here for a lifetime or grew up here.
And you were
moved
born here.
And
You're a Tivolian too?
that is why we are so fortunate, as Trustee has already said, that we have an engaged citizenry and people willing to serve, and sometime it'll be someone else up here taking a turn,
Yep.
doing what we're doing. But we really, we've done a lot in the last few years together.
Yes, it has.
And it's pretty thrilling when you think of other periods in village history when that was not necessarily.
Well, I remember when they didn't have that many meetings. 1 or 2 meetings a month.
I've been making them do 3 a month right now.
I've
gonna
gone
stop
more
that.
meetings in the last couple of months than I've gone a year.
All right, well, I think we'll let Jenny have the last word, or Tom Chrissy? All right, last word, Tom Chrissy.
Yeah, first I just want to thank you guys for the path there behind the firehouse.
Okay, good.
The only complaint is from the groundhog, he's not. And he's doing a heck of a job at eating the ends off.
He's eating the driveway.
He's eating the driveway.
Asphalt eating wood chucks. On that note, trustees, is there a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
That was Major, followed by Murphy. It is 8:31, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.